Planning and Infrastructure Committee. Oh, I'm in the wrong place. Wait a minute. Teresa, which one is this? I was in the right place, right? Oh, it's operational. Oh, what's that? Just technical difficulties. Once again, because I like my gavel. I'd like to call to order the RTA Organizational Service and Performance Monitoring Committee. Teresa, will you call the roll?
Mayor Biassiata, Ms. Moss.
Here.
Mayor Weiss.
Here.
And Ms. Welch.
Here.
We have 3 committee members present.
Thank you. Today we only have one thing on our agenda. It is an RFP procurement, a presentation on the competitive negotiated procurement for the rail grinding services. And we will have Joe Schaefer and Ashley Bobber presenting. So please take it away, Joe.
Is your microphone on, Joe? Is the green light on?
Technical difficulties?
There we go.
There we go.
Okay, Chair Moss, members of the committee, members of the board, rail grinding services. Why would we do rail grinding? Because rail wears just like everything else. You can see on the left it's kind of undulating. There's a ragged strip along the top, and the form of it is not good. And you see after rail grinding, it's smooth. That shiny area, which is the wheel contact area, is nice and straight, and it is a good thing. Before we start on this project, we had a prior project with Advanced Rail Management. They are a consulting firm that deals with rail grinding program management engineering services, and the rail profile, or cross-section of the rail that will be used for grinding, was developed under this contract. The project overview, there's a number of things that happen to rail that grinding can correct. There's corrugation, where the rail will get an undulating surface, and when you ride a train over this, it roars, or you hear other noises, loud, high-pitched squealing. Side wear is where the wheels get to an irregular pattern. You feel jerking or odd motion in the cars, and that leads to wheel wear. And I should add that one of the primary results of this is that the wheels and the rail have a better profile together. They're more comfortable with each other, which leads to a lot of benefits. Mill scale. This is left over from when the rail was made, and this can cause pitting and premature rail degradation, and the grinding polishes this off. The next item is rolling contact fatigue. That starts micro cracks, fatigue cracks in the head of the rail, which can lead to rail breaks. And the grinding erases that crack so you don't have those rail breaks. And finally, it extends the rail life. Maintaining the rail profile and grinding out the defects prevents wear and the necessity of early rail replacement or even rail breaks. So why grinding again? To extend the rail life, to restore the cross-section so that it mates properly with the wheels rolling over it, to control the surface plastic deformation, control rolling contact fatigue cracks that can lead to rail breaks, control the general rail wear, and then control other fatigue defects. And for us, a big thing, extend wheel life. And it does that through a number of things, but one of the big ones is improving the truck steering so the wheel's not grinding against the rail on curves and jerking the train. And then to improve the dynamic stability of the rolling stock so that the train has a smooth ride, there's no roaring sounds or other distress. And finally, it can also reduce power consumption because when the area of contact is smooth and uniform, it uses less power to move the car. Here's a picture of a rail grinding train. There are 2 8-stone grinders behind this head end unit. During the day, you don't see it very well, but there's sparks, and that's from the grinding. At night, it puts on quite a display. And you might ask, is there a fire car associated with this to put water on it after grinding? And the answer is yes. There is a following unit with rail on the rails that has hoses and water to put out any sparks.
Good morning, Chairwoman Moss, members of the committee, members of the board, Reverend Lucas. My name is Ashley Bober, and I am the contract administrator for this project. The RFP was issued on November 14th of 2022. It was accessed on the authority's website by 13 interested parties and 4 firms proposed. The evaluation panel were representatives from engineering, the Office of Business Development, the Office of Management and Budget, rail operations, procurement, and safety. The evaluation criteria used to evaluate the proposals was the qualifications, past performance, and experience of the firm, safety, of course, understanding the scope and the approach to providing the rail grinding services, the technical capacity and the resources, and the cost. Before I move on, I just want to briefly explain the process. As I mentioned, we had 4 firms that proposed. After the evaluation panel had reviewed the proposals, we invited 3 firms in for an interview, so we shortlisted 3 firms. And then after those interviews, we requested a best and final offer. And this evaluation criteria is used in every step of the process. This is also published with the RFP, so everyone who downloads the RFP has the same access to this information. The recommended firm is Lorium Maintenance of Way Incorporated. They're headquartered in Minnesota, but they have 7 global offices. The 7% DBE goal will be achieved through the use of Denise's Flagging, which is an African-American female-owned firm. Lorium Maintenance of Way provides maintenance of way solutions to heavy haul, regional, short line commuter, and transit railroads. They've been in the railway maintenance business for over 60 years and are a global leader in rail grinding and equipment on 6 continents. They have ground over 1 million rail miles in the previous 10 years, and they have utilized specialty rail grinders on over 60 railroads, over half which were transit or commuter railroads within the previous 5 years. Continuing, Lorium Maintenance of Way will be responsible for all of the equipment and services needed to plan, perform, maintain, and measure the entire rail grinding services program. There's going to be a technical superintendent, rail grinder operators, and very specialized railroad personnel who will be on board the rail grinder every shift to manage operations, maintenance, and safety. I also want to take this opportunity to add that Advanced Rail Management Corporation, who is our consultant, Joe had mentioned them earlier, it was on the second slide. They will be on site with Lorium Maintenance of Way in the rail grinder, providing quality assurance and quality control. Continuing, Lorium has advanced measurement and reporting systems that will provide complete visibility into all the work. And through meetings and communication, Lorium will ensure that expectations are raised and met, and obstacles restricting the accomplishment of goals are discussed. This was especially important for the evaluation panel because we had never done rail grinding before, and because there are so many different departments involved, such as operations, service management, rail, engineering, it's important that we establish those meetings and those communication lines up front. Other clients include New York City Transit Authority, the Tri-County Metropolitan Transportation District of Oregon, the Toronto Transit Commission, the National Railroad Passenger Corporation, or Amtrak, and the San Francisco Bay Area Rapid Transit. And before I continue to the recommendation for contract award, I do want to add a few additional details. This work will be completed in the 3rd quarter of 2023, so June, July, of August. We will be working around the operations and service management and other projects and other engineering projects that are taking place. And they will be 27 to 50 shifts. So again, there is that discrepancy because we don't know. We've never done this before. But we do have 27 to 50 shifts. And we anticipate that it will take maybe 6 weeks. Again, it's dependent on many factors. So staff requests that the Organizational Services and Performance Monitoring Committee recommend an award to provide rail grinding services to Lorium Maintenance of Way, Incorporated, for total contract amount not to exceed $1,160,500. And that concludes the presentation. We'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Ashley and Joe. It's a good presentation. I would add one more thing that when I initially went over it with the team, that we talked about that this will be happening from 7 at night
Yes.
until 5
Right.
in the morning to
From
be least disruptive to services.
Right, and we will be single tracking as well. So from 7 p.m. to 5 a.m., it's anticipated 27 to 50 shifts. One shift is defined as the 8-hour period, or 8 to 10-hour period.
Are there any questions from the committee or the board member, trustee members?
Just one question. How often do rails need to be ground? Is that a period of time? Is it based on miles of travel by our cars?
There's a whole bunch of factors that figure into it, but mostly observed wear. And when you start to observe wear and these defects, then it's time to grind rail.
And one follow-up, how many times can rails be ground before they need to be replaced? Any?
It depends on the amount of grinding, but probably 3 to 4 times over the life of the rail. The rail might last 25 to 40 years.
Go ahead.
Just really quick, given the time frame that this is going to occur for the rail lines that do abut against residential neighborhoods, what is the noise variance on the grinding?
They say that it doesn't, well, I shouldn't quote a number, but they say that it's not objectionable because the train is moving by. It doesn't sit by a residence. But they also have sound dampening materials around the grinding stones, shrouds that keep the noise down.
Okay, so to the average resident, it'll be just like if the normal train was going by?
It would be comparable to a train, yes.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Just to follow up to the timing question again for a minute. I understand the time that they'll be doing it, but does that mean routes will be closed, lines will actually be closed during that period? So will that change almost daily because as you move from track to track, or how does that work?
There'll be a portion of the line shut down during the work, and then other portions will be single-tracked. We have never done this before, so I think it's going to be a learning experience for both parties.
So, Mayor, I think maybe just for clarification, single tracks means that trains will continue to run. They'll just be slowed down because they'll be sharing both ways, one track for short periods of time. Is that correct?
That's right.
So we're not actually canceling routes?
That's right.
Okay, thank you for the clarification, Chair, as well.
I understand the question.
That's a great interpretation, definitely. Slow zones, when you hear that term as well, it does indicate a delay to customers, but not necessarily a shutdown. That's accurate.
If there are no other questions, is there a motion to bring this to the full board?
Motion Welch.
Second, Mayor Weiss.
All right, this will go to the full board. That concludes the business of this committee.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good job.
No, I got it. I would like to call to order the Operational Planning and Infrastructure Committee. Teresa, roll call, please.
Ms. Welch,
Here.
Ms. Moss,
Here,
Mr. Joyce, and Ms. Pale is virtual, so we cannot count her. So I believe we'll need to add someone to this committee to establish a quorum.
Valerie, would you mind?
Of course, no
Okay,
problem.
Ms. McCall.
Yes.
Okay, we have 3 committee members present.
Thank you so much. Today we have 2 IFB procurement presentations. The first up, we have a competitive procurement to provide waterfront line, platform, and track repairs. The presenters today are going to be Joseph Schaefer and Jonathan Lull. You may have the floor now.
Okay, good morning, Chair Welch, members of the committee, members of the board. I'm here to talk about waterfront line, platform, and track repairs. And this project is being done in conjunction with the repairs to the waterfront line bridge. But it involves the stations along the waterfront line, and you see them outlined there: Flats, East Bank, West 3rd, North Coast, and South Harbor. The purpose is to bring the pedestrian grade crossings and platform edges into a state of good repair and ADA compliance prior to the restart of waterfront line service. And the construction is scheduled to be completed by August 14th, 2023, which is just prior to completion of the waterfront line bridge repairs. The scope of the project includes the following: replacement of the pedestrian grade crossing panels, replacement of the track structure under those grade crossings, replacement of the ADA platform concrete tactile panels at West 3rd, and vertical or platform edge concrete repairs, repair of the platform edges, and surfacing the track structure throughout the entire station area, and protection of the signal system within the work areas. Since the waterfront line's been out of service, things have deteriorated somewhat, and so we need to bring that back up before the Brown service restarts. Here's just some other shots of the deterioration. And Jonathan Lawley will now take the procurement portion.
Good morning. The invitation for bid for this project was issued on February 13th of 2023. 20 parties reviewed the project, 2 firms submitted a bid, and there was 1 responsive bid for this project. The lowest responsive and responsible bidder for this work was Rail Works Track Services from Chicago, Illinois. There's a 13% DBE participation goal assigned to this project and will be utilized through using Cook Paving and Construction Company Incorporated. Railworks Track Services has successfully completed projects for here at the RTA, Norfolk Southern, Burlington Northern, Santa Fe, Canadian Pacific, as well as many other railroad properties. For this project, the staff is requesting that this committee recommend award to Railworks Track Services for the waterfront line platform and track repairs in a contract amount not to exceed $1,047,832. Any questions?
Do we have any questions from the board? Anyone? Ms. McCall, did you? No. Oh, okay. Yes.
I do have more of a general question. I'm not sure you'll be able to answer it. Might need help. But this is the 3rd contract that there will be 1 more after this, and everything is above our estimated. And I know that we've talked about during COVID how much more projects cost and how we have to adjust. But how does this, I guess maybe this is directed at Raj, how does this affect our budget that all these projects are coming in overestimate?
I'll let Mike specify and provide some details. Thanks.
Yeah, sure. Within the capital program, we have been adjusting for inflation, but it is still a moving target. And when you see, I think you'll see a little bit more of the impact of that when we bring the CIP to you next month. But if you look at a 10% overall adjustment on our program, that's about $60 million. So we've been rearranging projects. We have been fortunate in winning competitive grants that have helped make up for some of the inflationary pressures, because if we win a grant on one project, that frees that money up to do the other projects. So we're doing a lot of juggling and revising of estimates, and but it's a challenge. It is a challenge, and we just can't, bump everything up at a ridiculous number so we have bids underneath. But we're still trying to get competitive bids within 10% of our estimates.
Thank you, Ms. Moss, for that question. Any other questions? Do I have a motion to move this to the full board?
So moved. Valerie?
Karen, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? This will be moving to the full board. We now have a second presentation for an IFB procurement. Thank you so much for that presentation. A competitive procurement to remove, repair, and replace damaged pit drains at the Central Rail Maintenance Facility. We have presenters Ken Folk and Jen Martin. You may have the floor.
Morning. My name's Ken Folk, to discuss the Central Rail Maintenance Facility rail shop pit drains replacement. 70 of the 52 floor drains in the 2 inspection pits at Central Rail Maintenance Facility are blocked and or not functioning, creating standing water hazards. Videoing and cleaning is difficult or not possible due to the P-traps in the drains and possible blockage in the main sanitary piping system. Work will be completed in 5 phases, closing one rail section at a time in the inspection pits to maintain rail operations. This is a picture of one of the inspection pits, the south one. There's also another pit in the middle. You see the main 6-inch line going down, and then you have laterals off that, 4-inch laterals to the actual floor drains. This work will require the temporary removal, then reinstallation of several items, the steel grid platforms, railing, stairs, tool cabinets, workbenches, air, oil, and grease pipe supply lines, and of course the concrete pit floors. Existing drains will be removed, providing access to the sanitary drain pipes. Once it's open, we'll clean and video those pipes. Video review will determine any damaged or blocked areas that we can mark that can't be cleaned by normal operations for any future repairs. And we'll install a new integral drain with a P-trap that has an internal cleanout that bypasses a trap for future maintenance. Here's a picture of what we have now on the left is a normal P-trap. It's hard to get through that bend. The new drain has an internal lug that you can take off, so it's a straight shot to the piping.
Good morning, Chairperson Welch, members of the committee, members of the board. My name is Jen Martin, and I am the contract administrator for this project. The invitation for bid, or IFB, was issued on January 30th of 2023. It was accessed by 14 interested parties on our website, including subcontractors, and 2 firms had submitted a bid. The lowest and responsive and responsible vendor was identified being as Cook Paving and Construction Company, Inc. of Brooklyn Heights, Ohio. A 15% DBE participation goal was assigned to this procurement by OBD. And Cook Paving and Construction Company, Inc. is a certified DBE firm and will exceed this goal via self-performance of the work. Cook Paving has successfully completed projects for the GCRTA, ODOT, City of Cleveland, and among others, within their current projects being with the City of Cleveland, City of Sheffield Lake, City of Parma, among others. Staff requests that the Operational Planning and Infrastructure Committee recommend award to Cook Paving and Construction, Inc. for the Central Rail Maintenance Facilities, Rail Shop, Pit Drains. The contract is not to exceed the amount of $475,900.00. We will be happy to entertain any question the board may have.
Any questions? Yes, Mayor Wise.
Thank you. I just want to make sure I understand physically what's happening here. So is there an assumption built into the bid as to what length of pipe might need to be replaced? And does it fall outside the 4 corners of the actual pit, meaning that you're going to have to dig up further on either to get to that additional pipe?
Yes, we have made some assumptions. We're not sure. It is possible, it is in there that we may have to. The lines go into the regular floor of the facility, and there are cleanouts in that area. And it is in there if we need that to get that access, we can get in there and suck it from there also, or put the vac system in to clean it out.
And you're comfortable with the assumptions, obviously, that you made on the amount of pipe that has to get?
Yes, for the information we have at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Mayor Kumar, did you have? No? Okay. Okay. Do we have a motion to move this to the full board?
Motion to move.
Second, Valerie.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, this will be moving to the full board. Thank you so much for that presentation. Do I have a motion to adjourn this committee meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
This meeting is adjourned.
I'd like to call to order the RTA Audit, Safety, Compliance, and Real Estate Committee meeting. We have one item this morning, an RFP procurement, presentation of a recurring competitive negotiated procurement for casualty insurance broker services. We have Judy Lincoln and Sharon Cottrell Peffer presenting.
Okay, to the chair, I need to call the roll.
Oh, yep.
Okay. Mayor Kumar,
Here.
Ms. Moss, Mr. Joyce, Ms. McCall,
Here.
and Mayor Weiss.
Here.
We have 4 committee members present.
Good morning. Good morning, Chairman Kumar, President Lucas, members of the committee, and members of the board. My name is Judy Lincoln. I'm the Director of Risk Management here at RTA. I would also like to introduce Barbara Goodwin, who is on the line virtually with us. She is the Senior Vice President and Team Leader at USI. Barbara, are you with us?
Yep, she's on the line.
She's online? Okay, just checking. Okay, so to proceed, I am here to give you a brief presentation on RTA's casualty insurance broker. And in order to do that, I felt like I had to give you a synopsis of RTA's casualty insurance program. We do maintain a casualty insurance program for protection of assets against catastrophic loss. It involves several different lines of insurance coverage, the first being excess liability, which includes general, rail, and auto liability. That program has a $95 million coverage limit in excess of a $5 million self-insured retention. The next line of coverage is excess workers' compensation, which carries a $10 million coverage limit and a $750,000 self-insured retention. Lastly, public officials liability, which includes employment practices liability, which carries a $5 million coverage limit with a $250,000 self-insured retention. Why do we need a casualty insurance broker? First and foremost, we need them to access the insurance markets. If RTA wants a quote from Zurich or Travelers or AIG, we need to get it through an insurance broker. The broker assists in assessing the exposure presented by our account, in completing insurance applications, and in compiling a full underwriting submission. An underwriting submission is a comprehensive description of RTA's operations that is presented to underwriters in order to understand our account and provide us with quotations. The underwriting submission includes lots of information, things like details on our fleet, both bus and rail, service miles traveled, ridership, detailed descriptions of both our rail and bus systems. It provides a full loss history for a minimum of 10 years for all lines of coverage, for liability, for workers' comp, for employment practices, liability claims. It also focuses very heavily on loss control efforts and discusses our robust safety and security programs, and provides a detailed description of our camera systems, both mobile and fixed. To continue, the broker does hold well in advance of our renewal a strategy meeting with RTA to discuss the state of the insurance market currently, what carriers are interested in writing more business, what carriers are pulling back, what their risk appetite is, whether they're interested in rail accounts or whether they're interested in accounts with bus exposure. We do conduct meetings with the underwriters, either virtually or in person. They obtain proposals from one or more insurance carriers. They analyze those proposals and negotiate the most favorable terms and conditions for RTA. They assist us to coming to a program recommendation, which we then bring to the board for approval. We will then bind the coverage, and the broker is expected to check those insurance policies to be sure that they comply with the terms and conditions that were negotiated. After the program renewal, there is some ongoing insurance and risk management support, mainly in the area of insurance requirements for vendors and contractors. The risk management department works very closely with the legal department and the procurement department on many, many contracts throughout the course of any given year. It ranges from the new rail car purchase that's being discussed here today to the Waterfront line bridge repairs to miscellaneous purchases of products and services throughout the year. Those often involve specialized consultations about specialized insurance programs such as railroad protective liability, environmental coverage, and bonding or surety issues. The broker also is expected to provide us with an actuarial study, which is by a licensed actuary. They study our loss history for third-party liability and workers' compensation. They project what those losses will eventually cost RTA once they are concluded, and that amount is reflected on our year-end balance sheet every year. And I think this brings us to me turning it over to Sharon Cottrell to give you the procurement overview.
Good morning, Mayor Kumar, members of the committee, members of the board. My name is Sharon Cottrell Peffer. I'm a procurement manager for the services section of the procurement department. The current contract that we have now is with USI Insurance Services, which was awarded in 2017. At the time, Wells Fargo was the awardee. However, during the course of that contract, USI acquired Wells Fargo. And we've had the past 2 contracts with them. Price Forbes has been their partner, their London brokerage partner for the same period of time. And they have utilized Rutledge Group as their disadvantaged business. And this contract expires on May 1st of this year. This procurement, the RFP was issued in December of 2022. We had 11 interested parties, and we had 3 firms who proposed. The evaluation panel had representatives from the Risk Management, Office of Business Development, Office of Management and Budget, Planning and Development, and Procurement departments. The evaluation criteria used to evaluate the proposals consisted of references, market reputation, and experience of the firm in the areas of risk funding, casualty account management, and insurance placement activities for accounts of a similar size and complexity, cost effectiveness of the proposal, relevance and quality of staff experience and credentials assigned to our account, experience with other public transit agencies, organization, clarity, and responsiveness of the proposal in regard to the requirements outlined in the RFP. The recommended firm is USI Insurance Services. They're located in San Francisco, California, with a local office in Cleveland, Ohio. The DBE goal of 10% will be achieved once again utilizing Rutledge Group, who's also located in Cleveland, Ohio. The strengths of USI include GCRTA's casualty insurance broker in partnership with Price Forbes, who's a Lloyd's of London broker since 2013. They provide historical knowledge, technical rail knowledge, and understanding of GCRTA. They have a long-standing relationship with Price Forbes, allows access to London and Bermuda markets. Price Forbes is considered best in rail, Lloyd's of London broker in London or Bermuda. Additional strengths consist of they are also one of the largest commercial insurance brokerage firms in the United States, and they provide extensive experience in design and placement of insurance programs. They have extensive experience in public transit and rail industries. They have a strong market relations with transit accounts, ensuring GCRTA obtains the broadest and most competitively priced insurance coverage. Current clients of USI include GCRTA, Golden Gate Bridge Highway and Transportation District, Peninsula Corridor Joint Powers Board, San Francisco Bay Area Metropolitan Transportation Commission, San Mateo County, and the County of Marin. Staff is requesting that the Audit, Safety, Compliance, and Real Estate Committee recommend award to USI Insurance Services to provide casualty insurance broker services in an amount not to exceed $300,000 for the base 3 years and an amount not to exceed $100,000 for each of the 2 option years for a total contract amount not to exceed $500,000 for a 5-year period. Before I go to questions, Barb Goodwin is on the line, and Barb, would you care to say anything?
Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much. Yeah, we're very, very excited to be working with GCRTA for the last 10 years and looking forward to the new contract. So we very much appreciate the relationship and feel that it's a very strong partnership with the risk management group at GCRTA. Also would mention that we also value the partnership that we have with the DB firm Darwin Rutledge. We've been working with him for this entire contract period. He's provided some valuable services to GCRTA, including outreach for contractors, doing work with the agency, helping them with insurance requirements and education. We hope to continue with that going forward. So thanks again, and we're very excited about working with you all again next 5 years.
Thank you, Barb. Does anyone have any questions for Judy or I?
Questions from committee members?
Just a comment, since I called it out before, is this bid is actually 13% lower than what was estimated, so good job, ladies.
If I make just a comment, more so than a question, I feel like today is rail day almost. We've got so much business. A lot of it is on the technical side. I just want to, I can't understate the importance of this contract to be able to really ensure the activities and the services that we provide. The team has done a really great job, and as Ms. Moss pointed out, definitely kind of hit it on the mark as far as the financing side. But this is something that we really, I think, have been good stewards of, if we can say that, to make sure that we've got the right insurance with the right expectations and quality and experience in the industry. And this is just another kind of notch in the belt, so to speak, to make sure that we have our services and our facilities insured the right way. So I just want to say thank you to the team for a good job on this one.
Anyone else? Do I have a motion to refer this to the committee of the whole for consideration?
Motion to move to the full board.
Second?
Second, Mayor Weiss.
I could have a roll call on this one, Teresa?
Okay. Mayor Kumar?
Yes.
Ms. Moss?
Yes.
Mr. Joyce? Ms. McCall?
Abstain?
And Mayor Weiss?
Yes.
You have 3 ayes and 1 abstention. It passes.
There are no other business. Motion to adjourn the committee session?
So move, Valerie.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Thank
Meeting is adjourned.
you.
To the chair, is your microphone on? Okay. President Lucas?
Present.
Ms. Moss?
Here.
Mayor Biassiata? Mr. Joyce? Mayor Kumar?
Here.
Ms. McCall?
Here.
Ms. Peo is virtual, so she is not in attendance. Mayor Weiss?
Here.
And Ms. Welch?
Here.
We have 6 committee members present.
Thank you very much. We now have the code. Oh, you're not doing code.
We are. Code book updates.
You're doing code today?
Yes, everything.
He's co-presenting along with.
That's not Jonathan.
No, he will support you.
Yeah, good morning, President Reverend Lucas, Ms. Birdsong Terry, members of the board. My name is George Fields, Deputy General Manager for Human Resources. I'm here to introduce Jonathan Magari from our legal department, who will be doing the code book changes for our tuition reimbursement policy, looking at taking that code book, that tuition reimbursement policy out of the code book as it is duplicative to our personnel policy and procedure policy. As part of that effort, we continually work with the legal department to examine what comes out of the code book, but we also look at how do we enhance our employee experience and make changes to our policies in the future. So as we navigate the code book today, in the future we'll be coming back to the board to discuss potential changes to the tuition reimbursement policy that enhance our employee experience.
Before you start, yep, if you could hit the slides there. And to the board, I just want to make sure that that was not Jonathan. That's correct. And HR is really the owner for the change in the code book that will be coming later. So we have a kind of co-presentation situation going on so that we are able to answer any questions that you may have. And we will come back to you with further enhancements to the tuition reimbursement. But Jonathan's here to be able to explain what's happening from the legal perspective on the technical side.
Thank you. Good morning, President Lucas, members of the committee. As George said, my name is Jonathan McGorry, Associate Counsel 2 in the Legal Department. So the Legal Department is continuing its process of updating the codified rules and regulations of the authority, commonly referred to as the Code Book. And as part of that process, we are removing sections from the Code Book that are already provided for in the authority's policies and procedures manual. So there's no substantive changes requested today. So after review with Human Resources, we're broadening the current policy limited to tuition reimbursement to encompass employee development more generally. There's no substantive change being made at this time to the tuition reimbursement program. So staff requests that the Committee of the Whole recommend these code book changes to the Board of Trustees for approval.
All right. Any questions?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Good morning. First and foremost, it's good to see that we're expanding the employee development program. I think that's great, and I think it's something that we should continue. I'm seeking clarity because it says there's no real changes being made, but this is moving the tuition reimbursement program as it's known today from the personnel policies and procedures section of the handbook to the code section, correct?
This change will remove references to tuition reimbursement from the code book and the policies. It will remain in the procedures.
Okay, then maybe I'm looking at this wrong, because what I'm looking at has section 644.13 of the codified rules regulations. So chapter 644, that's the code book, right?
Correct.
So what I'm looking at still has it in a code, and then under the personnel policies procedures, section 400, compensation and benefits, it's all redlined out as if it's being removed. So I just want to be clear. Is it coming out of the policy section but being expanded in the code, or is it coming out of the code and going into policy? Because if so, the draft we have is incorrect.
So what we have in the draft, section 400, the second one you referenced that's completely redlined out, that is the policy section of the RTA manual, policies and procedures manual. There is an additional procedure section, which is about 3 or 4 pages long, that is not presented because there are no changes being presented or being requested to that section of the procedures.
Oh, okay.
So let me, if I may interject, so is that the duplication that you were referencing prior? Perhaps what may provide additional clarity, if that's acceptable, is to provide a copy of the additional 3-4 pages that are not being redlined to be able to kind of demonstrate the duplication that exists. Would that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'm sorry?
Just to know that it's included.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Well,
I think what's in front, exactly, what's being presented, Ms. McCall, is the red line version, but what you're seeking, which makes sense, is to see the actual duplication that's still existing within the document, and that's what we can provide.
Well, yes, that's part of it. I have a follow-up question. That's part of it. It would be good to see all of that because we're being asked to send this to the full board today, but we don't see that. And the reason why I'm harping on that, because I actually was paying attention to it in reference to something else, which made me go back and reread it. So in looking at that, if you go up to 644.13, where it's being removed, where it's being expanded in the codified section, we're redlining out tuition reimbursement, and we're calling it employee development. If you read the memo that accompanied, it says we're expanding the tuition reimbursement policy in the code book, but we're redlined out the entire section B, which is the tuition reimbursement program that shall be available to all Greater Cleveland Regional Transit Authority employees. And so if you read this, it looks like, on surface, it appears as if we're removing the tuition reimbursement program, which is a perk for employees. So if we're expanding the employee and development program, we're taking out the very gut of it, which is the tuition reimbursement. So from a policy perspective, coming before the board, are we removing the tuition reimbursement program? Because the way it reads, based on what I have in front of me, it looks like we're removing the tuition reimbursement program. That's a significant policy decision. And if we are, then that recalls a lot more discussion than just a quick pass-through. And if that is the case, what I would request is that we hold this until the next board meeting and bring this back to us and fully explain it. So if I'm confused reading it, if it's just me, it just may be me, and I apologize, but I actually was paying attention to this based on something else.
So if I can interject for a moment, I'm going to actually punt it for a second to Janet Burney, our general counsel. The intent is not to remove the program, but I want to provide a little bit more clarity, and then perhaps, George, if you want to weigh in from an HR perspective on what the board can expect for us to come back with for expansion of the program. Janet.
First of all, glad to know that,
Microphone.
Can you hear me? Good morning. My name is Janet Burney. I am the General Counsel for RTA, and we certainly welcome the board's questions about this particular issue. We did want to make sure that there was an understanding that the tuition reimbursement program is not being eliminated. As George Fields indicated, the whole idea of employee development is being expanded such that tuition reimbursement would be one of the categories under the broader category of tuition of employee development. So I apologize if there was confusion from the cover letter. What we can do is make sure that before the resolution is submitted to the board on this issue, that we provide more detailed information about what this is going to look like. But I just want to reiterate, we are not eliminating the tuition reimbursement program. We are expanding the scope of employee development tools and pieces that would be available. So we're just trying to clean up the code book, because the broader category is now going to be employee development, not just tuition reimbursement.
Okay. So
we will certainly make sure that you get more information before the board has to make a decision about whether to change this code book.
Okay, I appreciate that, GC. That's very, very helpful. Based on what I'm reading, though, what I'm looking in front of us, which is the red line version, and I apologize, it's the former city clerk coming out of me. What I'm looking at, which is the red line version, reads as if we're removing it. And so based on what's in front of us, and understand intent, right? And it could just be maybe the versions got mixed up, then I recommend we hold this and bring the entire program before the board so that the board can make the right policy decision with the full policy intent and correct verbiage in front of us. Because what I'm looking at has tuition reimbursement redlined out in the title, and then section B, which is the heart of the tuition reimbursement program, completely redlined out. And then when you go under the personnel policy procedure section 400, where you want to remove it from, it's completely redlined out. And that's all we have in our board packet, so that's all we can look at in front of us today. So my recommendation would be that bring the entire policy back to the board in 2 weeks and walk the board through that so we can make a comprehensive decision in its totality.
If I may, before Mayor Kumar, if you have any comments, if I can ask George Fields to kind of give a little bit of detail just on the prior intent, just to be able to explain the timing about coming back to the board, because I think that's an integral part. If we do need to bring it back, totally understand, but I just want to make sure that we're not agreeing to bring something back that's kind of half-baked or not ready yet. And so if we could give just a little bit of information on what the plan for the next step is, maybe that would help.
And honestly, I'm not trying to beleaguer this, because I know we need to get to rail, and I know that's going to be the bulk of the agenda today, and I know a lot of us have a hard stop on the back end. So what I'm trying to point out is, based on what's in front of us, we could spend the next 30 minutes or 20 minutes talking about the timing. I'm just trying to help punt that, because based on what's in front of us, I can't decipher what's coming behind that. You know what I mean? So I think it would behoove us to punt that until the next board meeting and bring that to the board. You could bring it to the board because you had discussion on it today, if that's the will of the board, and bring that back before the board at the next board meeting. because it's not in what we have in front of us and it wasn't in the board packet. So we can talk about what's to come, but we're asked to make a decision to move something to a board that I can't support based on what I'm looking at right now. That's all I'm trying to say.
I also think what Valerie brings is a good point, is in between, there won't be any tuition reimbursement. So
Right.
we're going to be in a gap, because I think what Georgia is going to tell us is we're going to change our program and we're going to put additional things in there. But if we repeal this, and before we do that, then there is no tuition reimbursement for a gap period.
There will still be a tuition
Yes.
reimbursement.
There's a
program.
repetitive, yeah, go ahead.
I'll let George speak and then I'll clarify. But again, we are not eliminating the tuition reimbursement program. But go ahead, George.
If this section is removed, does it exist somewhere else? So
Correct.
it exists there currently in another section, so this is removing a duplication.
Correct.
And then my gut is that you will be coming back at a later date to improve that existing program that's in the other section.
That's accurate.
That is accurate, Mayor Kumar. So the tuition reimbursement procedures exist in the PP&P, or the Policy and Procedure Manual. As Ms. Burney said, we're not eliminating the tuition reimbursement program at all. What we are doing, as the tuition reimbursement code book portion is coming out, we're looking at the Policy Procedure Manual to say employee development as a whole, including tuition reimbursement, will be part of the tuition, the Policy Procedure Manual going forward. So I think to Dr. McCall's point, and perhaps what we could do before the board meeting, is make it very clear that the current tuition reimbursement policy 400.13, as it is in the Personnel Policy Procedures Manual, is not being removed. The procedures for tuition reimbursement policy procedures in the PP&P is not being removed as well. And then, as I mentioned at the beginning of our session, for future meetings, we're going to bring forth more holistic changes that envelop our employee experience.
I think it'd be helpful for the board just to see that other section that Val referenced
procedures.
earlier, the 3 or 4 pages, so that we
Right.
have just clarification on it does exist in the same form and things like that, and that the policy will remain as it currently is. We'll remove the duplication, and then as you enhance the program, I'm sure that'll be brought forward at the appropriate time.
Can absolutely provide.
I recall when we began this section, there was some chuckling when I had read over this, and I could not see where we were going with you first without taking care of the other. So now that we have come full circle on this morning, I think that is a good suggestion. We put it all together, have a committee of the whole prior to we taking this up at the board meeting. How does that sound to everybody?
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Aye.
All right? Thank you, gentlemen.
I'm sorry, just so I can get clarity, are we holding this one, or are we coming back with the
We're holding it for
clarification?
now. We're picking it up at the board. We'll have a committee meeting first. And we'll pick it up at the board.
Okay, and let me just, I'm sorry, I just want to make sure we're doing this the right way. Because this is a cleanup section that we're trying to do, does that inhibit any forward movement from the staff to be able to work on the changes? If not, then I just want to make sure that that makes sense so that we can keep moving on the program. Okay.
No, it does not.
No, not at all. All right, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Councilman. All right. Then the next is a procurement, and we have the presenters, beginning with Dr. Caver. How are you this morning?
I'm doing well, Reverend. How are you?
Good, thank you, sir.
Good morning, Chairman Lucas and members of the board. I am Flauntay Caver, the Chief Operating Officer here at the Greater Cleveland RTA. It is my pleasure to bring to you and the community the presentation for the RTA rail car replacement. Presenting with me today, thank you. Presenting with me today will be Michael Shipper, the Deputy General Manager of Engineering, Raj Gautam, the CFO and Secretary Treasurer, and Mabry Harris, the Procurement Team Leader. As we will be presenting in front of you today, the presentation that you will see is the culmination of hours of work from the dedicated team members of the Rail Car Replacement Program's project team. If you would allow me, I'd like to ask for the project team members to stand who are here. And then if I can, I'd like to introduce those members so that you know who worked on this project. In the corner here, we have Melinda D'Angelo, who is the Director of Procurement. We have in this corner behind you, Anna, can you come over this way, please?
No, you're not in a boxing match, but.
Yeah. We have Anna Lavix, who is the Senior Legal Counsel. Behind me here, we have Jill Schaefer, who is the Director of Engineering. We also have Dan Dietrich. I can see him. Dan Dietrich, who's the Director of Fleet Management. We have Tony Garofoli to my left, who's the Director of Audit. Heather Schneer in the back here, who is the Railcar Project Controls Manager. And then I'd also like to give a special recognition to two individuals on the team. The first of those is Casey Blaze, who's in the back. Mr. Blaze is the Rail Vehicle Maintenance Manager, and he will be the car owner. He will be the person tasked with taking care of the car once it comes. Throughout our process, he's done a tremendous job in reviewing the technical specifications with our team, in helping us to understand the current car needs as well as the technology that's out there to replace the car. And in addition to Casey, I'd like to give a special thanks to Brian Moore, who's in the back here. Brian Moore is our Railcar Project Manager. He's professionally and he's a professional and highly capable project manager who took the challenge of, when called upon, of leading our railcar replacement team. As some of you may remember, prior to coming to this role, he was the transportation manager out at Triscuit, and before that, he worked as the project controls manager for the Euclid Corridor program. And so he's really been a leader for all of us in this, and we want to say thank you to this team. And I'll get an opportunity to present, but I want you to see the members who actually did all of the work for this. So thank you, guys.
Dr. Caver, I want you to know you were saved after having all these men stand up. I could feel the vice president over here breathing heavily until you had some ladies stand up. So
Okay.
we're very glad to see that they were a part of the team.
Those ladies were some fierce ladies on our team.
Thank you. So you said thank you, guys. Thank you, guys and girls.
All right, sorry. Fierce. So the project that we're presenting to you today is for the design, manufacture, and delivery of up to 24 high-floor light rail vehicles, spare parts, tooling, and training, with an option to procure up to 36 additional trains to be exercised within 7 years of the contract signature. So this project is for us to be able to purchase up to 60 trains to replace our current 69 trains.
I think there should be a pause. Isn't that great news?
It
That
is.
is great news. Great news. Thank you.
Many of the
Congratulations, CEO, and to all of the team that's put this together. That's a great thing. Very proud. In the midst of all that's going on, we're able to make this purchase. Go ahead.
Thank you. Many of you have seen this chart, at least some of the older, well, not older, some of the more tenured board members have seen this chart.
Thank you very much, sir.
That came out wrong. Have seen this chart. This chart represented what we call the pillar studies for this organization. In and around 2018, we took on 5 projects that were set to inform our 10-year strategic plan. They were the economic impact study, the railcar study, the fare equity study, system redesign study, and the economic review. As you all know here, and this board has effectuated the change, we have completed the system redesign as we said we would. We have completed the fare equity study, which we reduced our price of our fare from our all-day pass from $5.50 to $5. We recognize our impact, but today we're bringing to you the rail car study, which is an important pillar to the future of our organization. In 2018, we contracted with LTK Engineering Services to perform a comprehensive evaluation of our heavy and light rail cars. The findings from them were that we needed to replace our heavy rail cars in 5 years and our light rail cars within 10 years. And the rationale for that replacement was that our trains were experiencing structural loss from corrosion, that there was a lack of readily available parts, and that the cost of rehabilitation of the fleet would far exceed the replacement costs. Pictures that you see here are from that analysis. And what you're looking at is structural corrosion and rust that's throughout the trains. I do want to let everyone know that our rail car team is first class and first in the nation, and those trains are still safe. But this type of structural loss could not continue, and we need to replace those cars. Our existing fleet, we have two fleets, the HRV, which are the red line trains, the LRV, which are the shaker line trains. For our HRV, they were manufactured by the Tokyo Car Company. We ordered 60 cars, and we have 40 of those cars remaining. They went into service in 1984 and thus are 39 years old. They went through a mechanical overhaul in the 2008 to 2012 time period and an interior overhaul between 2012 and 2016. Our existing light rail fleet, the shaker line cars, were manufactured by the Breda Car Company. We ordered 48 of those, and 29 remain. They went into service in 1981, and they are 42 years old. They had a midlife, which was structural and interior, and that midlife occurred in the 2005 to 2010 time period. To give you kind of an understanding, we ordered the HRV by board resolution in August of 1981. That fleet is currently the third oldest fleet in the U.S. The other two systems that have had a fleet that sort of have done major system upgrades, and those two organizations are the Staten Island and the Port Authority of Camden. The LRV was purchased in September of 1977, and they're currently tied for the oldest age of an LRV fleet in the country. On January 21st, 2020, the Board of Trustees authorized a contract with LTK Engineering to prepare the technical specifications for the replacement of our heavy rail vehicles. LTK prepared a fleet procurement plan that recommended the procurement of a high-floor light rail vehicle that would be capable of servicing both our high-end platform areas. And for clarity, that is that they would be able to go both on the red line and on the blue and green line. A high-floor LRV is a car that can operate in both a heavy rail and light rail territory. It has doors that will allow the existing HRV heavy rail platforms, which are about 3.5 feet high, allow access on the platforms as well as on the street level in shaker. And so our shaker platforms are at street level. It will also have ADA accessibility because on the light rail, we actually have what are called mini high platforms. They're ADA ramps, and this vehicle will allow for wheelchair and ADA customers to be able to access the train in the light rail territory. There are several benefits to having a single fleet. One is that we'll be able to replace the two fleets with one vehicle. This will reduce inventory costs as well as maintenance costs. It will also streamline our operator and mechanical training and reduce the cost there. So one could imagine that our mechanics will have to learn only how to fix one type of vehicle as opposed to two, and our operators will learn how to drive one vehicle as opposed to two. We are working with the team internal, that includes HR, the union, as well as the project team, so that when we go out to this, see this vehicle built, we'll be taking mechanics out so they understand how the vehicle is built, and we will be getting training as a part of this contract, and we will be training the trainers so that when this vehicle comes, our employees are well equipped at how to take care of the vehicle as well as to train others on how to drive the vehicle. When we have one fleet, we'll increase our buying power as well as the number of partner agencies so we can buy more of the same part. And we'll also, and this is a benefit that I think is major for our community. We will increase the rail route flexibility and customer access of our agency. And so we will now be able to create trips that we could not create before. I want to just give a bit of a comparison of our existing fleet to our new fleet. The dash that you see there is for the HRV because we have two, and then the LRV. And I think what I want to just bring to attention is that the vehicle that we're purchasing, in particular as it relates to width, will be a slimmer vehicle. And so therefore, when Mike Shipper comes to talk, he'll talk about some of the infrastructure modifications that we'll need to make so that the train will be able to operate safely in the red line territory. We'll have a different seating capacity, but we'll have more standing capacity. And I know Ms. Moss likes this. They will have contoured plastic seats that are easier to be able to be cleaned. So I want to talk about the new rail alignment. One of the things that we're charged with as public administrators here, Brian is doing that? Okay. All right. That we're charged with is thinking about the future and thinking about our successors that we'll have. And I need to hold on.
While they're going through that, Doc, I'll pinch hit for you for a second. If I could just, again, impress upon the audience today how expansive this kind of project is, and this is really exciting. I can't help but kind of smile when I talk about it. As our chair mentioned, and you will see when we get it going, a video of the actual potential with this new car, and also how it's being used in other areas of the country. You saw that a lot of the changes that we had are significant when you talk about the capacity, when you think about the materials that are being used, and you also think about the width and the length of those cars. Being able to, and I affectionately call it a flex car. I know that's not the right technical word for it, but to be able to utilize that on both heavy and light is really important as well, because when we look through our competitors or our sister agencies in the country that have newer cars than what we do, a lot of the output that is more efficient is in the maintenance and the training. And when you're able to kind of utilize the track system that we've got and be able to kind of move those cars between lines, as you see coming up here, it really is a benefit, I think, to be able to expand and grow the system so that we don't have to switch as many trains in the yard. We also can be a little bit more efficient when it comes to the training our maintainers, so that they also are working on one fleet and they're not necessarily toggling between two different modes of maintenance. And that allows us to be more effective in the industry so that we actually are training our staff to be competitive with those other agencies. While we like to retain everyone here in Cleveland, we also like to make sure that we've got the best of the best. So, Doc, I'm basically saving what I had at the end and inserting it in the middle, and I think that's given you enough time to pull up the map.
It has. So we have our map here. And so, you know, again, as we've been charged as public administrators and under the leadership of India, is how do we create a better organization for the future? And so currently we have 4 routes: the red, the blue, the green, and the waterfront line. And what we'll be able to do and provide for our successors in this business will be to create new trip patterns. We've always wondered what new trip patterns could look like. So, Brian, am I advancing or you're advancing? I will advance. All right, thank you. So we have an opportunity to create a trip pattern from Stokes Windermere in East Cleveland to the South Harbor. So if that trip pattern became important, imagine we would have the opportunity to connect the museum districts with a single car ride. Next one, we have an opportunity to create a trip from the airport that could come into Tower City on a single train, turn around, and go into the waterfront line. So you can imagine that for major events in the waterfront, we can send a single train ride. Next slide, Brian. We have an opportunity to create a trip from Green Road and Shaker Heights through Tower City and to the airport. And should that pattern be an important pattern for the future planners could create it. And then we also have an opportunity, next slide, Brian, to create a trip from Warrensville and Van Aken through Tower City into the airport. And so by having a single vehicle, we will be able to increase the number of routes that we have by 100%, should the travel demands of this community demand those new travel patterns. Yep.
Due to my profession, this is when I used to ask the choir to give us a selection how this was all going on.
Well, that's all right. I'll continue to move through. We're on slide 14, gentlemen. So from a project perspective, we started this project where in February of 2021, we issued our first request for proposal. When we issued that, there were no responsive proposers, and therefore the procurement was canceled. Thank you, Teresa. What we did after that was to conduct several vendor debriefs. We conducted industry surveys, and we met with peer agencies to talk about the procurement that we had specified to have a better understanding. We reviewed our internal specifications so that we could evaluate and make sure that we were asking for the things that the railcar community could build. And we updated those specifications reflecting those feedback. The new request for proposal was issued in October of 2021, and one responsive proposal was received from Siemens Mobility. From that time, we had 37 meetings from May 22 through March 23, where we discussed items such as technical issues. We clarified scope, and we negotiated the price of the train. And so with that, we're going to recommend to you today that our recommended car building partner is Siemens Mobility. Next, I will have Mike Shipper come, and Mike Shipper will discuss the train's technical components.
All right. Thanks. Some of the key features of the vehicles, and as I get into this, we're making quite a jump from 40-year-old technology, and a lot of that technology has migrated as we have maintained and done midlifes and done things to keep the system safe and keep the cars safe and keep them up to date. But we're making a big jump in terms of what the base car that we have now is going to have a lot of those technological advances that we didn't have before. So the first thing is a structural crashworthiness standard. So this is a new crashworthiness standard that was developed in 2020 that will be integrated into this vehicle. One of the issues we've had with the old ones is whenever we have freezing rain and those transitions we have in the fall to winter and then from winter to spring. So we're adding an ice cutting pantograph to every one of the vehicles so we don't have to run our locomotive to try to cut the ice and stay ahead of it. There's a lot of things that we're going to be doing in the operator cab. Certainly heated windshields are one of those, heated pantographs. The vehicles, because of the fact that they're a common car working in a couple different environments between the high platforms and the low platforms, there's a load leveling system that will help adjust that floor height because that's critical. Dedicated HVAC and climate control for our operators. Keeping that space comfortable for our operators is certainly a lot different than keeping a whole train comfortable for our passengers. As Fonse said, the seating, it is smaller number of seats. There's 52 passenger seats, there's 2 wheelchair areas, there's 4 bike rack areas, and there is more room for standees in this vehicle than we have in our current vehicles. We have a lot of renderings around the room, and some of them are repeated in here, but these are the concept of the vehicle. And it is at a concept rendering level. The vehicle is based on a vehicle that Siemens does produce. It's their S200. But the S200 base that we are working off of is going to require a lot of engineering and modification to become the common car that we want and they want to deliver. But these are concept. The first 15 months of this contract will be spent in preliminary and final design of getting all the concepts approved and ready so that we can move into production. Part of what we're going to do with the common car is the front and rear doors will be the lower doors. That'll go down to the light rail platform level. The middle doors, and there's 2 of them, will be at the higher level serving the Red Line and the ADA mini-high platforms. A lot of lighting systems are so different than they were before. So LED lighting systems, operator cab, ergonomically set up, CCTV systems, camera systems, event recorders, Wi-Fi, all the technological packages that didn't exist 40 years ago are now in here. And again, the crashworthiness, which is huge. Interiorly, we're still going to have side-by-side seating. We're going to have large windows. We're going to go with the enhanced hard vinyl seating. The flooring systems, seating systems will be all set up for ease of cleaning, maintenance, sanitizing, all the things that we've learned through the pandemic. And certainly we've learned a lot of things in terms of air handling units and air handling systems, which will be part of this. There will be high visibility messaging in terms of the infographics and signage. But airflow is huge. From an aerial view, the design concept, we got more of the seating in the front. We've got the bike rack, wheelchair areas, and a lot of the standing areas in the middle. Access to the cab, and there'll be cabs on each end of each vehicle. We have, and that's an entry view of that. Wheelchair stations, there will be the wheelchair stations in the middle of the vehicles. In the whole rail system, we've spent so much time on ADA and key stations over the years. None of that is going to be lost because of what we're doing here. So the ADA functionality, the interface with the platforms, the interface with the mini-highs, and the stationing of that, we have the wheelchair seating areas near those doors. Bike racks, this will be a little different for us, but they are used all over the country, the vertical bike racks. Right now, we just have areas for people to stand near the front doors, but we'll have designated areas in this vehicle. A lot of the things that Casey has to deal with in the shop will be on top of the vehicle as opposed to under the vehicle. And in the old technology, a lot of that stuff was under the vehicle, but it was very much subject to the elements, salt, slush, and stuff. It still rains and snows on top of the vehicle, but from a component standpoint, a lot of the systems will be set up on the top of the vehicle. We already access the top of the vehicles because of the pantograph system anyway. But there will be some modifications we do include in the rail shop to access these components. But we think that's going to help us with overall life cycle. From the beginning of the front of the vehicle, it'll be much more visible than the vehicles we have now. A lot of that has to do with the lighting systems, whether it's the rail lights, whether it's the color coding of the routes, whether it's the destination signs. Again, much more visible with the upgrades that we've had in electric and lighting systems from when we originally got the vehicles. There's a side view concept. And again, these are still at a concept level. We will be spending a lot of time in refinement. From the operator standpoint, the cab is laid out. It's more of a center cab. It'll have a lot of monitors. It has a lot of cameras, a lot of screens. But it'll have a lot of similar functions that we have, and it'll have a lot of enhanced functions that we don't have in our system. But ergonomically, it'll be much better for our operators than what they have now. At the platforms, again, we mentioned that platform interface. Again, we will be interfacing with the mini highs. We'll be making some modifications to those. And we'll be interfacing with the high rail platform and the low light rail platforms with this vehicle. We do have similar but not the same vehicles in a couple other cities, in San Francisco and in Calgary. The Calgary one's a little closer to what we're doing. San Francisco one, from a height standpoint, the dimensional things in San Francisco are a little different. But at least there is a platform, it is proven, and we do have, I believe, a video that will show the operation in both setups. So this is more of a high platform, Tower City type operation of the vehicle. Again, the center section being the doors that are activated and accessible from the high platform. Again, ADA compliant, easy in and out. Then this will move into a street, more of a light rail setup like we have in Shaker, along the Shaker line. Low platform. And again, this accessibility is in the front and rear doors of the vehicles. So those are some of the components of what we're getting. And within there's a lot of different systems that we'll be evaluating. We've spent a lot of time on the specs, but the big thing is that we're just not, we're making a huge jump from what we've had from a base unit from 40 years ago.
The clicker should advance to the next slide.
There we go. And Raj will continue the presentation.
Thank you, Mike. So I'd start off with a historical perspective on the funding strategy. Back in 2017, somewhat anticipating the results of the study that was to come, and in 2018, at the conclusion of the study by LTK Engineering Services, GCRT accelerated the savings to fund the local portion of what was initially a $300 million program. Plan devised to identify savings in general fund was to budget and transfer funds into a reserve fund to get to the $60 million local match amount. An average of $10 million has been transferred into the reserve fund since 2017 for a total of $70 million. And we plan for 24 through 26 to transfer an additional $23 million if needed for additional contingencies. So at this point, the local portion of the total program is mostly funded. We are happy to inform you that no, we do not plan on any additional debt issuances at this time. This firm plan in place to secure the local match assisted then in our outreach to potential partners at the federal, state, and local levels. We identified funding through these efforts to secure federal formula funds, federal competitive and community project grants, OTP 2 grants, general revenue fund allocations from the state of Ohio, and a special shout out to NOACA for being one of the earliest contributors to the program, and do want to recognize that effort. Additional efforts continue to bridge the remaining gaps. So at this point, the expected funding for the total program looks like this. Of the $393 million in total program, which includes obviously the infrastructure-related modifications that Mike just talked about, RTA's portion at $79 million would be a little over 20%. Federal, $230 million, representing 58.5%. State at $60 million, of 15.3%. And NOACA and local funds of $24 million at 6.1%, making up the $393 million. The funding stack in a somewhat more detailed manner looks like this. The first column, funding amount, represents the total amount of the program that we just talked about. Between the awarded and committed columns, we have roughly $213 million identified. Unfunded, what really means is that these are grants that we are planning on pursuing or we are currently actively engaged in pursuing. The board members may remember the $130 million that you see in the extreme right-hand corner under the unfunded column. That is the grant for the IIJA grant that we had initially applied for in the beginning of January, so that tells you how important that grant is to the overall program. So the project overview that we are presenting is for a number of rail cars up to 24 at $123.9 million. Non-recurring costs, which include engineering, support, spare parts, and special tools, et cetera, that would be needed, making up $39.9 million for a total of $163.9 million. So the non-recurring costs that I just talked about in greater detail include project management, engineering, testing, training, manuals, field support, and spare parts and special tooling. I think with that, I'll turn it over to Mike. Did you want to talk about this, or do I continue with this? All right. Well, I think Mike touched upon. Pardon me.
Slide didn't move. But when we talk about the overall program, the large program, that includes our design phase that we've been doing with LTK and the safety certification that we've been doing with K&J. It includes the purchase of the rail car itself, including all options up to 60. So that's for all 60. And then it includes a piece of infrastructure modifications. So the dimensions of this vehicle are a little different than the dimensions we have now. Primarily, they're skinnier. So part of dealing with the vehicles being skinnier, we still have to maintain the 3-inch gap at the edge of the platform. So there will be some work that we have to do at the red line platforms and at the light rail platforms in terms of platform edge, platform widening, and ADA mini-high arrangements to make sure they're arranged in the proper location. Within our main rail shop, there are going to be some modifications that we need to make in terms of the working areas, some of the equipment, some of the computer systems so that we can run our parts maintenance properly and our inventory properly as we take care of these, and in the actual work areas. As we mentioned, there's a lot of stuff on top of the vehicle. So our pantograph areas, we're going to need some other overhead areas to work on those things. Some of the other things in the shop will stay the same. I mean, we still have our wheel lathes and the trucks and all that other stuff. But so we have a shop facility at the Central Rail. We also are going to do some modifications at the Brook Park shop out by the airport, because that's where we will be receiving the vehicles and doing our commissioning out of that shop. So as we receive vehicles, transport them there, commission them, test them, that facility is going to have some modifications to the yard and to the building itself so that we can do the proper commissioning and testing. And then we're also going to we are working right now on a connection from the freight rail system to our rail system for the actual delivery of the vehicles, where they'll be shipped on the freight rail, delivered, and then transferred into the light or heavy rail system, depending on which location we get. That budget is contained within that 393, and that budget's about $19 million. We will be timing that work so as we finish the final design, the first 15 months of the rail car, and have everything nailed down for dimensioning, then we will be doing the design and staging and awarding contracts early so that we can get all the materials and time that with whatever we convert over from our old fleet to the new fleet. And part of that conversion, because of the change in the width, that conversion will happen when we've received the 24th vehicle and have accepted the 24th vehicle of the contract. And that'll be 48 months into the contract. So it's going to take 48 months for the first switch of old vehicles to new vehicles. The pilot test vehicles will show up between 33 and 36 months, and we will run them through a pretty extensive acceptance testing, and we will have vehicles on the system, but we won't be in revenue operation with those vehicles as we do the commissioning of the vehicles. So each vehicle has to run about 1,000 miles. But because of the fact that these vehicles are skinnier, we can't widen the platforms in advance of using them because we still need to use our existing fleet. So some of the keys of this contract will be how we integrate these modifications, time them properly, phase and stage. And that's some of the stuff that we will continue to work on as we progress through the first 15 months of the railcar contract. So key things, 15 months of design and nailing down, and we have rough dimensions now. But nailing that down, then as they get the pilot vehicles here after 33 to 36 months, making sure that what we are designing is going to work, and then having everything ready 48 months from when we issue the notice to proceed. So this is a key part of the things that we have to do beyond the railcar contract. And it's very important that we phase and stage this in a way that is as seamless as possible for our customers. So, but this is a big piece of that. And then we also do have some contingency within that 393.
Good morning, President Reverend Lucas and the Committee of the Whole. My name is Mabry Harris, and I am the Procurement Manager for Fleet and Rail for this procurement. The RFP was issued on October 11, 2021, and accessed on the GCRTA website by 125 interested parties, which included prime contractors and subcontractors. We received one responsive and responsible proposer on March 9, 2022. The proposer was interviewed and submitted its best and final offer. The evaluation panel consisted of GCRTA staff from rail equipment, rail transportation, rail power and way, fleet management engineering, engineering and project development, safety, legal, Office of Management and Budget, procurement, and internal audit. The evaluation criteria used to evaluate the proposal included the proposer's technical evaluation, the proposer's qualifications, the schedule, the lease modifications to infrastructure, as well as price. The recommended company is Siemens Mobility Incorporated, located in Sacramento, California. In accordance with federal regulations, the Office of Business Development does not establish goals on rolling stock procurements. Company experience. Since 1975, more than 1,800 LRVs have been ordered from Siemens to meet urban transport needs in the USA and Canada. Siemens has modern high-floor LRVs designed, built, and operated in the U.S. than any other car builder. They are an industry leader in providing, designing, and manufacturing light rail vehicles. Siemens has demonstrated experience in assembling, testing, and commissioning light rail vehicles. Siemens' relevant clients include San Francisco Metropolitan Transit Agency, Utah Transit Authority, Denver, Colorado Regional Transportation District, St. Louis, Missouri Metro Transit, Edmonton, Canada Transit Systems, and Calgary, Alberta, Canada, Calgary Transit. I'm going to turn it over now to Tony Garofoli to go over our Buy America review from internal audit.
Thank you, Mabry. As Mabry said, I will address the Federal Transit Administration Buy America review. As a condition to receiving the federal grant funds for the purchase of the rolling stock, we must certify compliance with Buy America and the pre-award and post-delivery audit requirements as prescribed in the federal regulations. There are 3 tenets. The manufacturer must demonstrate the cost of the components produced in the U.S. is equal to or greater than 70%, and we must verify that at the manufacturer's information location. The second is the final assembly of the vehicles must take place in the United States, and that is in accordance with the federal regulations. The rolling stock is the third tenet is that the rolling stock is the same product described in the solicitation specification, and the proposed manufacturer is a responsible manufacturer with the capability to produce a vehicle that meets the specification. We've had some good conversation with the manufacturer. We are scheduled to conduct the pre-award audit at the proposed manufacturer's location after the Board of Trustees awards this contract and before issuing notice to proceed. We'll take some subject matter experts with us, and we look forward to that process. I'll turn it back over to Mabry.
Thanks, Tony. I'll take that last slide. So Reverend Lucas and members of the committee, at the April 10th, 2023 Committee of the Whole meeting, staff will request that a recommendation is made to the Board of Trustees for the award of a contract for the replacement rail cars.
All right, questions?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Right, Valerie. Mr. Chair, first and foremost, I want to commend the team for the presentation. This has been a long time coming. When I first got on the board over almost 2 decades ago, I joked about the rail cars being the same rail cars I rode on as a kid, and then CEO Calabrese said they are the same rail cars you rode on as a kid. And so for that, I want to say kudos to the team. Siemens is known as an industry leader across the country for rail cars, and so for that, I don't want to steal my colleague's thunder because I know she's going to ask that question about proposers versus the number of bids that came in, but it's good that they're at the table with GCRTA, with our own internal experts working on this. I want to go back before I move forward, and Doc put up a slide from 2018. It showed the 5 pillars that we talked about. And I just want to pause for a second because sometimes we have unsung heroes in our midst that we don't pause and congratulate. And so for a lot of us, I think Karen, myself, you and I, and maybe Reverend Lucas may be the only one still on the board during that time. Want to give Doc a round of applause because Doc got thrown into the fire. I think you guys may have just come on too, but when we started this process and we threw a whole lot at you, and all of it was equally as important to get to where we are today. So to be here today is great, but none of this would happen today without all of this. So let's give Doc a special round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, a couple things. I want to make sure that as we're moving forward, we talk about the CIP, but we should never be in a situation where we go 30, 40, 50 years without having a plan for replacing cars. We are into new technologically advanced rail cars, which means that we cannot afford to be in a situation that we were in before where we don't advance because technology is going to change. So the one thing I want to make sure of is that we have a plan for ongoing technology improvements, making sure that we keep a fund for replacement, and that we keep a fund for ongoing training. I'm going to talk about some of the concept on the design in a few minutes, but just a couple other points. I just want to make sure something that I heard, so I have a question. We're talking about the purchase of 24 high-floor light rail vehicles, but currently today we have what's called heavy rail vehicles, and we also have light rail vehicles, but we're only purchasing light rail vehicles. Are we migrating because of technology, because of design, because of new industry standards from light rail vehicles to an entire fleet of light rail vehicles? Will we continue to have heavy rail vehicles? Is that just terminology that's being, taken out? Can you just spend a few minutes and explain why we're purchasing only light rail vehicles versus heavy and light rail vehicles?
Yes, thank you, Dr. McCall. So when we designed and looked at the type of car, we wanted to have a single car. So the term light and heavy rail, when we say heavy rail, think of a subway car. The subway cars are not modified such that they can operate in both. They're going to operate in a subway where you have a high floor. Mm-hmm. This light rail platform, think of a car or a chassis for a car.
Right.
This light rail platform will allow us to have both doors that can allow you to operate on the red line, right, as well as that you can get into off of the street. And so it's the platform on which the car is built, and it's as opposed to a subway car, okay, which is the heavy rail.
So we're migrating to one
away from the
that heavier car. That's important because I think as we go out to the public to articulate this, it's a lot of money we're spending. It's Euclid Corridor project, now AKA Health Line plus 100 million, give or take. I think that we probably want to come up with some terminology. We're replacing our trains with new trains, latest, greatest version. And I think we want to be consistent with that terminology, but that's important. Yes. Couple more things really quick. Speaking of Health Line, I can't wait till we replace the BRT with LRT, but I know that's another thing coming down the line. I'm going to digress for now. Couple things. I'm glad that we're on concept only on design. I've been on several of different trains. I've been in some of the simulcast trains that you've had at some of the expos, that's been on the floor at some of the APTA annual meetings. I like the designs on the inside. I think we have an opportunity to be creative on the outside in terms of the sleekness of what the train looks like. And the reason why I'm saying that is, for those who don't know, the design we see with BRT buses across the United States started with Cleveland and Eugene, Oregon, and really Cleveland with the New Flyer model for the articulated buses and the Health Line buses. Of course, we weren't the first ones to do it, but we were the first one to bring that BRT model. And when it got introduced to the public, the fact that it didn't look like the normal bus was part of what sold the project to the community. And so I say that to say, the concept is great, but as much as we can get away from making it appear that it looks like what we sort of kind of have, I think will help with selling it to the community, which leads to my next point, which is we have an opportunity with this. This is a great way for the agency to capitalize off of talking to the community. This is a great opportunity to engage the community, maybe do some, hey, here's a model, let's get some feedback. Lastly, I want to make sure we understand like the cab and the comfort of the cab for the drivers. Just making sure that there are some components to that. And I lied, not lastly. The bicycle racks on the component part, this is really nice conceptually. On a crowded train, and you got people standing around, how realistic am I going to move so you can put your bike up here? So I don't know, like unlike the BRT models where you could put your bikes in the front, but we just may want to think through maybe how that could work, ease of flow for riders getting on and off the trains. And so, again, I just want to say, I just think this is great. I think we've come a long way. I think from a community perspective, there's some first in that financing stack that's never been done before. Having the rail trains on the state of Ohio's tip, which had never happened before, with the partnership of NOACA, the city, and RTA. I don't want to minimize for the board the importance of Reverend Lucas is telling me to hurry up. This has been 40 years in the making. And this is one of the last committee meetings I'm going to vote on. So with all due respect, this is probably one of the most important purchases we will be making in a very, very long time. It has long-term impact, and it has the opportunity to impact the bottom line and increase ridership in an area where we haven't had it before. So I just want to say I'm actually really, really excited about this. For those who don't know, Mike Shipper would tell you I used to always fuss about and the trains. When they used to come before us with the CIP, where are we putting money aside for the trains? We need to replace the trains. And to be able to sit here today and not have to talk about and the trains says we've come a long way. So again, kudos to the team, kudos to the staff. This is a great day for RTA. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, as well.
Thank you so much for this. I'm very excited about this. I just had a quick question about speed time. So I don't know if I saw that in the presentation and if there was any information around speed and in comparison to what we already have out there, and also how that relates to the efficiency of getting from stop to stop.
Yeah, I can answer that. So the speed time of our trains is largely constrained by our track, and so we are making major upgrades to our track where we will believe that our trains will get faster. So Ms. Terry talked about slow zones and things of that nature, and so we'll be able to move a lot quicker. So our current trains can go faster than they go, but our barrier has been our track.
Thank you for answering that.
Anything else? All right.
If I could, Reverend, or
A question, just this base contract is for 24 trains, correct?
It's for up to 24 trains.
Okay,
we are
great.
still finalizing the funds. We are in an active grant process that we hope will provide information that could make it go up, and it may go down depending upon the actual cash that we have on hand. But we structured it for up to 24.
And given the combination of light and heavy rail, what would a full fleet be in terms of number of trains? Is
If
that
they
the
were
24?
separated?
Well, since we're
Oh,
going
gotcha.
to one model, what would a full fleet be?
So we need 24 to replace the current red line. And then we need 60 to replace both fleets. So we'll go from 69 trains to 60 trains total.
Okay, great. And so there was a slide up there, if I was following it correctly, it was like for 360 million. Was that for all 60 trains?
No. That's
The total program
Was
is
it the
393.
393, sorry.
393 is the total program with the 60 cars as well as the modifications that we will need for tracks. So that is
Gotcha.
the rail replacement total program. What we're bringing today is simply the cars.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Right. Anything else? Yes.
No, go ahead, because mine's more of a wrap-up.
Okay, just very quickly, obviously, we're all very excited about what we're seeing here. The one thing I just want to touch on was the additional accessibility of routes that you showed, the additional, to me, that is a critical component of this. And I think you said if there's service or if the need was there, I'm just wondering, is that further down the road after all the trains or the cars are obtained, or is that something that we'll ease into?
It is, and so what we're providing is the canvas for the future. And the planners of the future Joel Freilicks of the world will take a look at the demand and travel patterns of where people want to go, and these will be options that they could have. You know, historically, we've had a demand for individuals from Shaker who wanted to get to the airport and kind of got a little afraid of the transfer that happens in Tower City. So if that demand is there, the community will be able to offer that. And so we don't know what it will look like, but we've offered the potential and the flexibility so that the future leaders in this organization can create those based upon the demand.
Great. I think especially with our focus on TOD, it's really critical and all ties together. So kudos.
Thank you.
Mine's kind of like a conclusion. I actually have lots of comments and lots of questions, but I don't want to keep everybody, and I'm happy to talk individually or as a thing. But are we still having that second rail car meeting?
Yeah, we have another meeting set for the Committee of the Whole on April 10th. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah, so,
yes.
so that we would be able to ask our questions.
Yes, yeah, we figured you probably have more than you got today.
Right. Thank you.
Right,
Reverend, before I complete, I do want to introduce to you also our corporate partners who are here. And first, I would want to introduce and ask if they could stand our members from LTK. LTK is our engineering consultant firm who's helping us with the process. You have Mike Cook and Pam Alexander.
very good.
And then our recommended vendor is from Siemens Mobility. If I could ask if they could stand, we have with us Robin Stimson and Brian Hawkins. And he's with that completes my presentation. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. And we're not taking this yet, are we?
No action is needed.
No, if I can clarify as well, just to remind the board, we've got the April 10th. The reason that we put that on there was because, as was mentioned, this is a large project, and we figured there would be additional questions for the board. The board does have the opportunity, if so desired, to move this today, and I know that's what you might be asking about, Ms. McCall, but we wanted to make sure that no matter what, we have an opportunity for extra questions, and if it's at the comfort level of the board to have those questions and conversations, we have an opportunity for you to do so at the April 10th. So we thought it might be prudent to move it then, but again, that is up to the board whether you're comfortable moving it today.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we can move.
I think we can move it as well.
Let's move it on.
So moved. So moved, Mr. Chair.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any other discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no. That's complete. Thank you very much.
Thank
See how
you.
well you did. All right.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. All right, seeing nothing else, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second, Valerie.
All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Anybody
Aye.
opposed? If not, thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
All right.
Looking
Hey,
forward to
Miss-
seeing you till we meet again.